Villains come in all shapes and sizes, from crazy and indestructible, to cocky and annoying, to being a mountain with a sweet beard and hammer. In God of War and its sequel, these villains emphasized Kratos and Atreus' need to work together, and their need to be better versions of themselves for their own sake and, more importantly, one another. These types of villains always stress where our heroes are physically weakest, striking at the heart of who they were or who they might become. Odin, on the other hand, isn't such an imposing force. We never see him punch Kratos through a mountain, never see him take on a whole Asgardian pub by himself, never see him catch arrows like they're paper airplanes. He appears to be nothing more than an old crotchety man vying for control, a man seeking power through knowledge before seeking it through force. But this does not make him any less sinister, any less threatening, any less of an evil turd sandwich. Our best sense of Odin, the real Odin, comes through in the stories about him, how he manipulated, lied, and cheated those closest to him, so that he could hurt or kill anyone that stood in his way. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. As with any villain, Odin's literal function is to obstruct our hero, but his literary function is to help our characters grow by facing their inner struggles. Why Odin excels at both has to do with his own character motivations and the way in which he goes about achieving those goals. If we look at Odin more as a character and less as a villain, we get a better look at the simplicity of what he wants and the similarity it has with the wants of Kratos and Atreus. All three characters, in fact pretty much the entire cast of characters, wants to know if their fates can be changed. Or, stated another way, they want to know the extent of their control over their own lives. Does Kratos have to die? Does Atreus end up serving Odin? Will Thor always be his father's destroyer? Will Odin always be king of the 9 realms? The irony of this story is that the harder our characters try to change, be it themselves or the fate of the world, they somehow end up causing the very thing they meant to avoid. The more they fight for control, the less control they seem to have over their fate. It raises the question, if you know where you are destined to go, or who you are fated to become, can you really choose to change? This is where Odin's motivation, to find the root of all knowledge, ties in so well with the theme of the story. While Kratos seeks out the Norns to find a means of protecting his son, Atreus seeks out Angrboda and Odin for a means to prevent Ragnarok. Similarly, Odin seeks fragments of the mask so that he can look into the rift and learn where he goes when he goes, as if by knowing the final destination, he could find a means to avoid it. We understand that Odin, like most people, has this existential question about his death. Where does he go when he dies? What is the point of his existence? These questions have driven him for so long that he has lost sight, literally and figuratively, of what is important now. His family, his kingdom, his legacy. As audience members, we know this is true because we have either heard stories about what Odin has done to find these existential answers, and we have seen how abusive and careless he is with his sons and grandchildren. This is further illustrated when Atreus and Odin discuss what motivates the Allfather's actions. Odin tells Atreus while walking through his private study that war, power, and wealth are not what drive him, but rather it is the search for knowledge. What I want to draw attention to is the fact that Odin feels pretty justified in the actions he's taken during his pursuit of this knowledge. When Atreus asks Odin about killing Ymir, Odin states that he did everything to protect his own, that he killed the first giant to protect his family and his way of life. Whatever the supposed reason, whether it is defending his family or finding answers about his death, Odin genuinely feels that he is in the right for manipulating, imprisoning, or killing those around him. The ends justify the means. This is also where the story really excels at making a sympathetic villain, because while we know that Odin is an absolute butt to everyone around him, we can at least understand his fears, because we've felt the same fears on some level ourselves. As stated earlier by myself and Odin, what he wants is not so different from what Kratos and Atreus want: answers, and the power to control those answers. The difference is in how our heroes and villains go about getting what they want. Kratos, frankly, was pretty stoic about his own death. I don't know if he figured he would just climb out of hell for like the 8th time, or if he had just come to terms with dying so long as it meant keeping his son safe. Atreus, conversely, sought out ways to understand, if not accelerate, his fate. He looks for answers. Is he really Loki? What is Loki's destiny? Is there a way to avoid Ragnarok or prevent his father's death? Odin is also looking for answers, but unlike Atreus and Kratos, who more or less go about their search harmlessly, Odin will enslave entire peoples for their resources and knowledge, send his own family to kill a renowned god-killer, and treat what family survives like disgruntled employees at a crappy Christmas party. It doesn't matter to him. So long as he gets the answers he wants, Odin is happy. Odin is self-centered. All of his resources, including children and grandchildren, are viewed through the lens of utility. Baldur, his dead son, had value. He was Odin's best tracker, whereas Magni and Modi were pretty useless. Heimdall reads minds for Odin, while Thor kills who Odin tells him to kill. Essentially, Odin's family is viewed by the man himself as a type of tool collection. There is no bond with these people beyond what they can do for him, and this was no different with Mimir and Freya. The man is predictable in this manner, so much so that we as viewers never fully lose sight of the fact that Odin is manipulating Atreus to translate the mask so that he might look into the rift. Odin's appearance at the game's beginning marks a point in Atreus and Kratos' relationship where the father-son dynamic is most strained, a point where he can manipulate the boy most easily. Odin gives Atreus the closest thing to freedom from authority that the young man has ever had. Odin tells the boy that he is not his father, and yet refers to him as son. He gives him a penthouse room, a talking sword, and the admiration Atreus never gets from his father. All of it is done deliberately to drive Atreus away from Kratos and towards serving the Allfather. Likewise, with Kratos, Odin seeks a way to control the God-Killer. However, unlike Atreus, Kratos cannot be as easily deceived. But since Odin cannot easily kill Kratos, and since doing so would turn Atreus against him, Odin must resort to discouragement. The same way Odin subjugates Heimdall and Thor, Odin attempts to belittle Kratos, picking at his deepest insecurities, causing the man to question whether or not his own motives are more justifiable than Odin's. Hey, you've murdered people too. Remember literally everyone from Greece? Are you sure you're the good guy in all of this? This shows that when Odin cannot directly manipulate his victims, he can at least plant the seeds of doubt within their minds so that his enemies work to question and weaken themselves. But what I love about this means of manipulation, why I think it works so well for this story in particular, has to do with our heroes and their wants over the course of the story. Both Atreus and Kratos want their fates to change for themselves and the people around them. They do this against the approach of a seemingly inevitable Ragnarok. Every step they take to avoid a war with Asgard pulls them ever so slightly closer to this tipping point. Odin, in a similar vein, has tried to avoid Ragnarok by disguising himself as Tyr and using his knowledge to keep one step ahead of our hero's efforts. However, this backfires when, for a senseless and selfish reason, Odin murders Brock. Killing Brock does not get Odin the mask. It pretty much galvanizes everyone into wanting Odin dead, not just defeated. The senseless killing is quite literally what results in Odin being wiped from existence as far as I can tell. But what I think this decision, and what so many decisions in God of War up to this point have in common, is that they are all selfish decisions and grabs at control. Why the predicted futures for Kratos, Atreus, Freya, and Odin do not change is because everyone is acting for their own wants, benefits, and need for control. That is, except with the one character who loses everything, Sindri, the only person who gave everything and ended up with nothing. Everyone else, to some varying degree, is selfish up until the very end of the game, and this pivot in their motivation is what ultimately changes their fates. Let me explain. The way our heroes ultimately end up avoiding their destiny has nothing to do with making the smartest decisions or strong-arming their enemies into doing what they want. Instead, Kratos gives Thor a choice. Atreus gives Odin a choice. This is doubly significant because giving an enemy the ability to choose is not really Kratos' thing. Likewise, the choice to defy Odin's command is not like Thor at all. Both men make an uncharacteristic decision for the benefit of someone else, which in this case is their children. This works because the Norns explain that all fate ever really is looking at one's past decisions, anticipating the willingness to change or stay the same, and making a prediction based on that individual's trajectory. Because the men are both willing to do, essentially, the unpredictable, they subvert what their fates had predicted. We see how this choice results in saving Kratos' life, while also causing all of Asgard to unite against Odin after the killing of Thor. From killing Ymir to murdering his own son, Odin's actions are what they have always been: selfish. Nothing he has ever done has been for anyone but himself, no matter what he believes. While Odin may think that every choice he makes is to protect his own, in reality, it has always been to protect himself and gain control. Whether it comes to an enemy or a loved one, Odin refuses to make a better choice, to throw off his ambitions and let go of his desire for knowledge and control. Even when Atreus offers him a final chance at redemption, a final opportunity to not be a complete turd and give up his search for answers, Odin says no. It's this unwillingness to change, this unwillingness to give up control, which ultimately leads to Odin's fate coming to fruition. Despite centuries of manipulation, deceit, murder, and intimidation, all in a quest for answers about the afterlife, Odin gets nothing more than the fate he was promised. Ragnarok would bring the end to Asgard, Thor, and the All-Father himself. The irony is that none of it would have happened had Odin not sought a means of preventing it.